He has never had too much of a problem expressing himself, although his mode of expression isn't the norm for most of us. His wit and his wisdom, through the characterizations of many of this nation's most notable politicians, have earned him scorn from a few, but chuckles and accolades from most. His journalistic career, through editorial cartoons, has provided him with experiences and opportunities enjoyed by few, but reveled by many. Our next inductee, Bill Whitey Sanders.
He came to Western with a football under his arm, but it's the pen Bill Sanders carries that most know him by. His parents moved to Florida from Springfield, Tennessee. He started his college career at the University of Miami, but ended it at Western.
The thing about Western was that there was a sense of belonging being on the campus. A sense that you were not just a number.
The 5'11" quarterback completed almost 67% of his passes his senior year. That set a national collegiate passing record. He was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, but ended up in Korea, where he worked for the American military paper, Stars and Stripes. The rest is history.
And I was going through the base library one day, and I knocked a book off the shelf as I walked by, off a desk. And I picked it up, and it was a Herb Block book. And I still have that book today. I picked it up and I looked at it, and I looked at these cartoons, and suddenly the things that I had been feeling about what was going on in the world, I could see some of them comments on that unfold in Herb Block's cartoons. And it just hit me that this is what I want to do. I would like to say what I think about what's going on in the world, and this is a way I can do it, through cartoons.
So after the Stars and Stripes, the Greensboro Daily News hired him after a young Hugh Haney left to work at the Louisville Courier-Journal. In 1963, he went to the Kansas City Star and ended his career at the Milwaukee Journal. The Journal's Craig Gilbert said he could turn a drafting pen into a needle, but that was not Sanders' objective.
I hope that what I draw makes people mobilize their mental faculties to think about an issue. They don't necessarily have to agree with it, but at least think about the issue, and that's was my primary goal in drawing cartoons.
He obviously has his political views, but he's not sure where they came from.
All I know is that I feel what's right, what I think is right, and what I think is wrong. And wherever that puts me on the political spectrum, that's where it puts me. I can't help it.
Sanders always worked hard, but was motivated to do so early in his career in Greensboro.
The editor there was an older gentleman who was gentle soul as could be, but he let me have free rein to express my opinion and encouraged me to do that as long as I knew what I was talking about. And if I didn't know what I was talking about, then you don't have an opinion on it. You know, your opinions don't come from thin air. You have got to do your reading and research, and you have to know what you're very valuable experience working under that man.
With the hard work, there was also a lot of fun. The Milwaukee mayor even had a pet name for him, Colonel Sanders.
I went and got a Colonel Sanders costume with a bow tie and the hat and the whole stick, and I had a Colonel Sanders bucket, and I went to the televised press conference, the mayor's press conference, with a bucket with a drawing pad and the pencils in it, dressed like Colonel Sanders. And they saved me a seat right up front. So just before airtime, I sat down, and the mayor came out, and he was so frustrated. I mean, he was literally mumbling, trying to formulate words,
Sanders and his pen have gone through some tough times: the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Watergate, and more. But he says the good times far outweigh the bad.
I personally take great pride in the fact that this country can produce a Martin Luther King and his movement and his leadership. Unfortunately, the same country killed him. When the first time that space vehicle crashed into the moon, I took a great deal of pride in that. I mean, there are great things in this country.
Pick up any newspaper and the editorial page will most likely have a cartoon. He says it may be a cartoon, but it has a tremendous impact.
Cartooning is just an art form that you try to get people's attention to certain issues, and it's not great history or literary achievement or anything.
Sanders is quick to remember his roots. Western has meant a lot to him and vice versa. He sculpted a statue of Mr. Diddle that now sits in the arena named for the infamous coach. In his mind, the hill will forever stand tall.
When I go back to Western, it's like coming home. You know, when you've been away from home and you come back, and it's the professors and the president and the students that you knew, and you relive some of this in your emotions and feelings, but also a great deal of pride. And you look at Western today and what a marvelous campus it is and how it's grown and everything. And so there's a mixture of pride, but there's also this feeling of going home. It was a very comfortable place for me to be in a great period of my life, and I'm always delighted to go back.
He has some words of wisdom for those looking for a good institution of higher learning.
If you can get what you need academically at Western, and there's a great deal to be recommended in academics from Western, if you can get that at Western, you will get something in addition to that you won't get at another university. And that is this sense of belonging, this sense that somebody who truly cares about you and what you're doing and where you're going in life.
Sanders retired in 1991. He loves spending time with his wife Joyce and playing golf. But the Basin Street Saloon Band unveils one of his other talents.
Music has always been fairly easy for me. I don't read music, and that's hard. I have to learn chord progressions. I have to learn the names of chords, and I have to do homework to do that. But by and large, if I can hear the melody, I can play it, and after some struggling. But it's just fun. It's just something I enjoy doing.
1997 Hall of Distinguished Alumni honoree, Bill Sanders.
The first thing I would like to do is thank all the members of my family who came here, and my cousins from Tennessee, and my oldest daughter and son-in-law. My other daughters live in places like California and Connecticut and Chicago, and they couldn't make it. But I truly do thank those of my family who came. And I assure you that I'll tear all those pictures up later, and nobody will ever see them. When I came to Western, I owe particular debt to Ed Diddle, because one of the first things that happened to me on campus is I saw this really cute girl in the cafeteria. It turned out to be one of the twin cheerleaders who were recruited by Ed Diddle because he had to cook twins, and they were a spectacular response from the people when they performed. And so he was always on the alert for those, and he ran into a couple of twins up in Munfordville, Kentucky, behind the soda fountain. A friend of his owned the drugstore, and he lobbied them to come to Western. And so I met my wife on the first day, thanks to Ed Diddle, and we've been lifelong partners since, and I want to thank her for making me possible today. One of the unique privileges, I think, attendant to being on Western campus was the idea that you had a sense of yourself thanks to the friendliness of the faculty and of the students. I think it was a unique environment. I don't know that extends today, but I suspect it does, maybe segmented in some fashion. It is a particular privilege. It was a particular privilege to me because I played football with a group of men from 52 to 54, a group of us who bonded, I think, in a unique way vis-a-vis this institution or any other institution. After we graduated, we continued to keep in touch, our wives, our families, over all this period of time, and there are about 20-something of those guys sitting over here at these two tables. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. One of the greatest privileges of my life has been able to be a part of that group. Not that we didn't have our odd times. There was a pool room downtown called Chex, and this was a refrigerator ball club, incidentally, that all these guys were on. And when we played in that refrigerator bowl, which was the first and only bowl, I think they gave it up after our game. they gave us all watches. And in those days, none of us had any money. And it was a dry county. That's why all the football team joined the Moose Club. That was the only place you could get a drink. But for our more nominal afternoons out, we could always go down to Check's pool room, and if we didn't have any money, we'd give him our refrigerator bowl watch, and he'd stick it up behind the counter and give us a $10 bill, and we could shoot pool and drink some beer, do whatever, go out on a date. And I think when we finally drifted away from this campus in 1954 or 55, I think Check's could probably open a jewelry store, because I think he had about 20 of those refrigerator bowl watches still down there on his counter. One member of my family who's not here, that was the first thing I thought about when he called and told me about this award. My third daughter, Cheryl. I had an agent in Chicago who was booking speeches, and the money from those speeches helped me put my daughters through school. And I was at the University of Minnesota making a speech, and Cheryl was the only one home when she got a call from New York, the United Nations, and a lady by the name of Germaine Greer, who was the honorary chairman of the Population Institute there, and she was calling to tell me that I had won their award for my cartoon supporting women's rights in an era when they were pushing equal rights and so forth and so on, leveling that playing field. And the only one home was my daughter, Cheryl, who answered the phone. So the next day, I discovered eventually that I had won this thing and was being invited to New York. And so when I got to New York at the dinner, then I heard the inside story of what happened. Miss Greer called and got Cheryl on the phone and wanted to know if I was there, and Cheryl said no, and no one else was here. And she said, well, you give your dad this message, because you're going to be very proud of him. Said he has won this award for the best cartoon on women's rights. And I'm just calling to tell you that your dad is officially now a non-male chauvinist. And there was a long pause, she said, as she told me this story. And then the voice from Cheryl said, you're kidding. I have a feeling there are probably a lot of professors and colleagues who had that same response when they found out about this award. But I have no shame. I'm happy to have it. In the words of Guru, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.